afternoon. You're watching AB Live, a brand new news-based chat show in which we discuss topics ranging from business, news, politics, and so much more. On today's episode, we are discussing the UAE startup ecosystem. And in the studios today, we have Janardhan Dalmia and Omar Al-Ashi. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us today. Thank you so much
for having us.
Great. So again, two very, very interesting startup ideas, two similar yet different, I would say. So let's start with you, Omar. So tell us more about your brand.
Okay, so YouRent actually, in short, is the first Airbnb of vehicles in the region.
Interesting.
So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to launch a platform to where individuals in the UAE will be able to establish trust amongst each other and basically start sharing their vehicles with one another. Now, there's tremendous amounts of problems in the rental industry today, and I feel like it's been 30 years inconsistent, nothing's changed. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of hassle, a lot of headache involved in it, and I think it's time to innovate and take things to the next level, which is why I came up with YouRent, and YouRent is it's a platform made to cater for both ends, the renter and the host. So any private owner with a vehicle that he's not using can place it on the platform under a profile.
Okay.
So he'll have a rating, 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, and he has reviews. People will be able to look at each other prior to renting from each other, which is the best part. So
interesting. So
you get
right. So it's a very interesting concept. Looks like you act as a bridge then between both parties that you mentioned. But what is the sort of investment that has gone into the brand?
I would say the biggest investment that's gone into the brand was the database, the actual application, because we had to make sure that we build a platform that's going to handle millions of users in the future. And I think it's a chaos when you reach a point where you decide to scale your business, add more categories, which is in our plan, like I mentioned before. We plan on adding 5 different categories of vehicles aside from cars.
Okay.
So you need a database that's going to handle all that and handle just scalability, continuous changes, tremendous amounts of users, transactions, so on and so forth. So I think the biggest investment we made was in the back end, in our database and our app.
Okay.
Mobile app.
All right. Now coming to you, JD. I mean, even you do deal with vehicles, but in a slightly different way. It's not peer-to-peer. So can you tell us more about Truckin?
So Truckin is a techno-logistic platform whereby we connect the transporters along with the shippers, but whereas we act as the transporter. So we are a marketplace for all the fragmented transportation for a long haul heavy vehicle is where we focus on, which is available throughout the GCC.
Okay.
So we act as a marketplace platform for them. We are an enabler whereby they can come and work through us, and we provide full-scale service for the long-haul movement to the enterprises. So we operate purely on the B2B space, whereby we cater to all the GCC region and beyond. We are today physically present in the UAE and in the Saudi, but we have catered to all the GCC regions and beyond.
Interesting. So you guys are basically facilitators of the logistics sector?
We would call ourselves as a service provider.
Okay.
So facilitation is an element of that, whereby we do facilitate it. We kind of enable all the transporters to unlock the market potential which exists, which for a small or an independent transporter is not available today.
Okay.
So we are kind of a mix of, you would say, there are certain elements of Airbnb which is there for us. There are certain elements of Uber which are kind of us, but then we take pride in, upping the benchmark of service levels in the region and professionalizing and institutionalizing the whole transportation market, which is highly kind of fragmented and disorganized.
All right, interesting. So now you mentioned how you guys are sort of Airbnb, sort of Uber, but then you have your own structure and business model. But Omar, let me try and understand how you sort of relate to Airbnb's business model. But in terms of this region, what would you say your exact strategy or model is?
Okay, so in this region, it's A, culture. Look at the culture. See what gap needs to be filled in the culture, or in Dubai in specific, and then make or create a platform to where it's accessible to almost anyone, both Arabic and English speakers. Arabic is very important because there's a lot of people who struggle with English, English apps. So I would say why or how we're similar to Airbnb is just the model itself is built. If you look at it in a perspective where Airbnb basically acts as a broker, as a middleman between someone offering their home for rent and someone who's looking for a home. And usually the prices range from very low prices up to the the elite prices for the big houses and the fancy houses and so on and so forth. So what we do is, in terms of how they make their revenue, in terms of the commission they make, we actually are more lenient than Airbnb in terms of how much we take from hosts.
Okay, can I ask you how much?
We're looking at 25% from hosts.
Okay.
But like I said, when it comes to commercial hosts, we do cater to their needs, because sometimes 25% just doesn't cut it for them.
Right.
And we're not coming to attack these rental agencies. We're coming to say, hey, we're here to help you guys advertise your vehicles and your, like, not the company, the vehicles. Because we have to, go back to the core of the business, which is peer-to-peer. So individuals are the only hosts you're going to be seeing on the platform. But hey, I'll market all your cars, and we have a marketing budget as a startup. So there you go. You have all your cars listed on our platform, and it'll be easy access for people, because everything's now on the mobile.
Correct, yeah.
And people spend 80% of the time on your phone, whether you like it or whether you disagree or not.
Our channel is online.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people who are watching will agree that you spend, how much we spend time on our phone today and how it was 5 years ago, it's a tremendous change. Yeah.
Agreed. So now one recent development that we heard that coming from, of course, your brand, was that you have tied up with the royal family in some way, and there's some collaboration that you've done with Seed.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Well, Seed Group actually is a company that's basically owned by by Sheikh Saeed bin Ahmed Al Maktoum.
Okay.
So it acts as an incubator, provides sponsorships for external entities who want to enter the UAE market, opens doors. They have tremendous amounts of experience in that field. They establish partnerships with entities also that are trying to come to the UAE and expand their business. But with me, it was a different formula. It's just because it's an entity that, it was, if you want to compare, it was an embryo. When they approached me, when I approached them, and we first met, we spoke about the idea. The CEO of the office, Hisham Al-Gurg, knew a lot about the peer-to-peer industry, and he was studying it for years. So basically, it was just a click. It was like the right person, right time. Let's collaborate and let's make this happen. So it was a different formula with your end, because it was an investment formula. So they invested in the company, incubated the company, and of course gave me the exposure that I needed to get to where I am. And aside from the fact that this business needs a lot of regulations, licensing, approvals from government entities, which is their expertise.
Of course, then we will speak about the challenges. But now Seed has definitely going to help you in the longer run, and of course in the shorter term as well.
Sure.
But coming to you, JD, right now, I need to understand about the whole fundraising element of it, which most people say is a sort of thankless job. So you started in 2017. How has it been for you since then?
See, the journey has been good, hence why we are where we are at the moment in terms of our growth. I don't think fundraising is a thankless opportunity. I think for any founder or anyone starting a business, raising capital is not easy. There is no dumb money floating around anywhere. People who invest, and it's your responsibility as a founder or anyone who's running the business to build strong foundation of the business, to have clarity in terms of what are you building. What is the market, have you done your research? Have you revalidated the numbers? Is there an opportunity there or not? So I don't think it's a thankless job. If you want to raise a capital, no one else is coming and saying that please take capital from me. It's you who need a capital for your vision or whatever you're trying to build. And you absolutely need to do very strong, work around building your foundations and ensuring that you have done the proper due diligence. And it's actually a great thing, because when your investors go through a significant due diligence, it revalidates a lot of things for you, that yes, you are on the right track, and that is why they have supported.
Right.
So in startups, it's basically you should, if you want to fail, you should fail faster, right? Because the longer it'll take you to fail, you are just wasting the resources of everybody, right? Including your time and energy. So I don't think fundraising is a thankless job. It's a very important part of your capital life cycle journey for a startup. And as I said, I think all the investors in the region, whether they are funds or investors or high net worth individuals, family offices, they're super smart. They know what works. They understand the pulse on the ground here. There are certain cultural differences, regional differences in terms of how companies raise money in Silicon Valley versus how they raise in Asia and how they raise in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So one really needs to know their business model in and out and make a very sound structure, and then being able to convince the investors only revalidates and encourages you further.
Right.
So we have been lucky on that front. We just did a fundraising round. We closed a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Whereby we had some of amazing family offices have joined us in supporting our growth. We look at ourselves not only as a UAE company. I personally consider Truckin as a UAE as the home market, along with Saudi Arabia as the home market.
Okay. Which means you have expansion plans? Is that what
we already
means?
are present in Saudi Arabia from the day one when we operated here. In just a couple of months in 2017, after launching here, we launched in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
So for me, both Saudi Arabia and UAE are my home markets. Clearly, from a startup's point of view, it's much more easy to operate and facilitate and hire talent and build your base here. But Saudi Arabia remains an equally important market, and the rest of the GCC as well and beyond.
Right, understood. So, Janardhan, just on those lines, now when we're talking about fundraising and getting investors to come and lure them essentially to your particular companies, there's the entire phase that we talk about. There's seeding, there's of course involvement of venture capitalists, and then there's angel investors. So, what is the role that these people actually play in your organization, not just at the seeding phase, but all throughout? Omar, yes.
Okay, so basically, actually, it depends on the entrepreneur himself and, of course, the business model. Because in my business model, it's very crucial and important that I pursue strategic partners, people who are going to be active with me. Yes, it's an extremely attractive model. Yes, a lot of people would want to dump money into the business and just watch it grow, but that's not my interest. My interest is to build a team of who also happen to be investors and strategic partners who are going to come on board and enhance the business and just throw in ideas, brainstorm, take it to the next level, and just share the same vision. And one crucial thing that I would advise any entrepreneur to do is, especially at a young age, me being 24 years old, I'm quite young, is people don't tend to take younger entrepreneurs seriously. But actions always speak louder than words, and I guess that's where the advantage was with me.
But that's something I've actually found quite strange, because when you're talking about startup, which is so tech-driven, especially in this region, the younger generation is sort of the ones who have the technical know-how when it comes to digital technology, etc. So do you think there is a mindset change happening there?
100%, and that now what happened was in the western region, I would say. People tend to choose younger entrepreneurs over older entrepreneurs, and that's always been the case there. Here it's starting. People are starting to see these young entrepreneurs emerge, and with brilliant ideas, brilliant minds, and this is when they're like, you know what? I like this guy's energy, him being dynamic, always on foot. I think it comes back to passion. Passion is key. Whether you're 40, whether you're 20, whether you're 15, if you're passionate about something and you pursue it brutally and manifest it in your head, you will be able to achieve it.
All right, so now just coming back to, we've spoken about cultures, we're sort of doing a comparison between the East and the West, of course, but right now Dubai has been considered as one of the world's top hotspots when it comes to startups and the startup ecosystem and the ease of doing business. JD, I'd like to ask you if you agree or not, and if you do agree, why do you think that is?
See, definitely in the region, Dubai is, probably the only place where it's the most easiest to, explore what you want to do. For any startup, it starts with exploration stage. Everyone has an idea, but idea without execution is an illusion, right? So to put it into an execution mode, obviously Dubai is one of the most convenient place in the region to do it. And anyone who does things well in UAE can pretty much go and capture the rest of the GCC. That's a pretty strong belief for all, the startups and investors who are operating in the region.
Right, but what would you say were the main challenges when you started out in 2017?
See, I think the challenges are not as such, in terms of the opening of the businesses, or people being receptive or not, that you absolutely need to do a groundwork on your own business. But I think certain things where it could probably become a little bit more easier for the new emerging startups, and which the government and authorities have already taken steps, but I think there's something more which can be done, is playing with the licensing cost, with the ease of hiring more people. Still the number of people you can hire is restricted to the kind of office space you have, different licenses, different zones, different free zones. And it's for any young entrepreneur, if there is a bit of an admin work related to these, these might be act as a deterrent for his initiative or his enthusiasm, right?
Right. I need to ask you if you agree. Do you think at this juncture, the license fee and red tape, if red tape is prevalent and if the license fee is unreasonably high?
I do agree 100% with what he's saying in terms of Dubai being startup friendly. Back in the day, it wasn't, just due to the fact that it was very traditional. LLC being one, limited liability company, 51% local, 49% expat. But now, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid has announced that he is also pursuing the Entrepreneurial Visa by giving people 10 years instead of like having to renew their visa continuously. So I think this is the time where Dubai is focusing on that, putting like basically the spotlight on entrepreneurs and startups, because it is the future. And it is what Dubai wants to be recognized as in the future in the Middle East, I would say.
Right, then I need to ask you, there are a number of new rules that came in, including the 10-year visa, 100% foreign ownership, now the gold card that is being given out. So how do you think this is going to affect and impact SMEs and startups?
See, I think these are obviously great steps, right? I mean, no one can say that this is, this is always encouraging for entrepreneurs. I think where it could be more helpful from an SME point of view. So if I take my example, I have my decision to invest in the country was already taken based on whatever the number of years of visa I already had. I'm already very bullish on the region. I'm already very long in the region. So, but if it helps me to hire more people in a much more cost-effective way, maybe I can expand faster. So the decision to expand could further be enhanced or accelerated based on, if my cost of hiring, visas, etc., are relaxed, or the duration is increased for my employees as well, or the colleagues who join our company.
Yeah.
Because personally for myself, my decision was already taken. I'm still long.
Right.
So whether it stays at 3 years or it becomes 10 or 15, yes, it's an encouraging, step. But I would like to see more towards that as well.
But let me ask you, at this juncture, we just saw an economic downturn, a slump, and now we're slowly picking up from that. But during the slump, we saw a lot of austerity measures being taken, where jobs were lost, salaries were cut, etc. So when all of this is going on in this market situation, do you see a lot of employees wanting to be recruited by startups then?
Look, definitely employees are much more flexible. The talent is, it's more flexible to find the talent, but you always have to work really hard to find the right talent for your company, because truly, you could have the best idea, you could have best platforms you have built, but it's ultimately the people who build the business.
Do you agree, Omar?
100%, because there's two ways of looking at it. Traditional business, how things were past many years, is, an established business has no problem replacing employees or even replacing CEOs. Nowadays, with startups, it's all media. You see a huge startup, successful startup, let's say, for example, a $1 billion startup, where the CMO or the CEO steps down, the shares just crash, because in the end of the day, it's the team. I don't believe in the term employee in a startup. It's all one team working towards one goal, where we're all eligible for shares in the company. The same way, Kareem's the biggest example. I mean, it was a $200 million cash out for employees alone.
Wow.
During that sale. So this is the approach where, this is the approach that's taken with many startups. It's, hey, I'm not trying to hire you, I'm trying to bring you on board, and let's share the same vision and let's make this happen.
But personally for you, was it difficult to recruit local workforce?
Dubai has a tremendous amount of talent, and a lot of people are realizing this change. So anyone who tends to share the same passion, whether it's a startup in the automobile industry, whether it's the food industry, health industry, fitness industry, they tend to find it as an opportunity to grow and grow with that company. So yes, no, in terms of going back to your question, I do see people changing their mindset now into exploring new things, and mostly, like, I mean, when I tend to seek for talent or employees or anyone to add to the team on Urant, one post on LinkedIn will just create tremendous amount of traction of people who just are passionate about one thing in the business and are willing to take that leap of faith and start with me at a half pay just to grow with the company. So it's very nice to see, and it's very nice to see people who are looking up to you as someone who is starting something from scratch, but also wanting to be a part of your journey.
Oh, great. So people are not just receptive, they're also reactive.
Yes.
Then that's great to hear. But now just backing up a little bit, I know we spoke about visas, gold card, etc. But realistically, I would like to ask the both of you all, if you guys are actually expecting as startups, it doesn't just have to be you guys, it can also be for your friends who are in the startup sphere. If you all are expecting to get gold card or like a citizenship or a residency, do you see that, at least if not in the near future, at least in a few years' time? Any of y'all can take
Please go ahead.
Look, I've never thought about those things. I mean, irrespective of whether that happens or not, I still consider Dubai as my home. This is where my family lives. This is where my children are growing up. This is where, I'm investing. So for me, emotionally, I'm already wedded to UAE. I already consider it as a home. So anything in the step which, encourages it more for my second and third generation, hopefully in the future, to stick around is, all positive. So I think UAE is anyways very flexible and very adaptable. It's one of the most cosmopolitan societies in the Middle East. And, pretty much anyone who comes to UAE leaves with a wow. They come back again with more family and more friends. So I don't think that would change anything for me. But yes, if anything of that sort of happens in the future, I mean, it'll all be a very nice thing to have.
And what do you think, Omar?
Honestly speaking, it's actually in the unknown. We will never know if that's going to be really implemented. So back to what he was saying, Dubai has been also my home for the past over 20 years. And you just build this attachment with Dubai, whether you have the citizenship or not, whether you're you're a citizen or not. It just comes down to how hard are you willing to work to maintain that, to maintain and stay in Dubai, because stating the obvious, Dubai is very expensive to live in, and it's a lot of people stay here and live paycheck to paycheck, and they're fine with it. Like they're fine with it just because they want to stay in Dubai. But yet again, I mean, let's see. I guess time will tell all, but I don't think it's a factor that really changes anything.
Okay.
In my perspective.
All right, that's quite interesting. But now just moving on to the market trends that we see over here. When it comes to startups, there are obviously certain sectors that are doing better than the other sectors. There are certain transformations that are happening that give certain startups an upper hand over the others. So right now, the words that are being thrown around is, of course, AI, there's digital transformation, there's AR, there's VR, and of course, the new formats, which is the intelligent enterprise, social enterprise, etc. But out of all of this entire the congestion that we hear when it comes to all of these terms that are thrown around, what do you think works for this region specifically?
What I think works for this region. Now, going back to AI, virtual reality, these startups usually tend to raise a tremendous amount of money that goes into research, in order to develop a prototype that's going to be presented in expos. But again, is this product going to be available today? If so, it's going to be available for the elite, for the people who can afford it. If it's not going to be available today, it's going to be available in 20 years. So it depends on your mindset as an entrepreneur. Do you want to make money today, or do you want to make money in 20 years?
Right.
So my mindset is no, I want to make money today and I want to make money tomorrow as well. So I guess it's building a startup that caters to the people's demand now, today, and scalable to a point where in 20 years your business will also grow and evolve as the world evolves.
Right. So I'm aware that the larger corporations, they obviously, because of the access to money that they have, they also have access to the latest technology, the emerging
100%.
technologies, for example, AI, artificial intelligence, etc. So do you think that sort of gives them an upper hand over startups like yourself?
Look, I don't think so. It gives them an upper hand. It makes, in certain areas, for example, like banks, it's a very relevant industry where, you can see all the, banking, whether it's retail or commercial. They are trying to upgrade their, services through technology. I think recently Mashreq had announced that they're going to shut down the physical branches, a lot of them, to be able to, cater through technology,
Right.
which is all makes sense. I don't think it's about it gives them an upper hand. It is what the evolutionary technology is evolutionary. One cannot say that just because I would build in something AI, I need to be relevant. Before building an AI into something, you still need to have something which can be used today, which can be adapted today. As what Omar was saying, are you building technology which is going to be 20 years from now? Or are you building product which is going to be used now, which is going to solve today's problem, and then if you're able to do that, technology is more of a lab, right? It's a laboratory. It's an R&D process. So once you invest what you're solving today, and then you continue to invest, research, some things might work, some things might not work, but it's a constant process. It's not a destination. It's a journey, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think a large corporate investing into technology kind of competes with us. Everyone has their own area of expertise, what they're trying to do. So clearly large companies need to continue to invest where they're investing into digitalization or technology as they see fit with their industry, and startups are going to continue to do invest into technology and digitalization where they see fit. And I don't think it's binary that either you're going to be a technology company or you're going to be just non-technology company. A case, for example, like ourselves, we call ourselves a technologistic platform. So whereby we already building digitalized products, technology apps, etc. But at the same time, we are also strengthening our on-the-ground operations, because it totally depends upon business to business. So you cannot put everything under just one umbrella and see it from a single point of view.
Also, it is, of course, I completely agree with you, and it's also ever evolving. So isn't that sort of scary for you? Because what's trending right now will probably not be trending later, but you've already set up your firm, you've put in so much investment. For example, a recent study found out that globally, especially in the US, UK markets, what is working is gig economy is working right now, there's cryptocurrency working right now. What isn't working is sharing economy isn't working. It's seen a slight fall compared to the last year or the year before. So sharing economy is seeing a slight fall. There's fintech, which is seeing a slight fall. So isn't this scary for you?
Again, it also goes back to where is it falling? Now, when you look at markets, like I'm going to go back and say the Western end, I did mention that their public transport's A, and then bicycles and scooters is B, and then walking is C, and then car is a luxury comes last.
Right.
So yes, people don't tend to use cars as much as they do here. In the UAE, we have the highest human to vehicle ratio in the world. We have touching 10 million population and touching 6 million vehicles, and that's unheard of. So the demand for vehicles in Dubai, an expat who lands a job in Dubai, comes to Dubai, buys a car, but then rents an apartment. So it remains a priority in the UAE. So it goes back to where you're setting up your startup and what the demand is in that specific area. So I do believe that it's different, it varies, and it changes. The sharing economy is fairly new. Ride-hailing came first, and now the sharing economy is following right after. Does it have potential? Yes, it does have huge potential, because, like I said, it just opens the doors to where you can A, save money, B, utilize what you have today or now, rather than go buy and waste money on something that's going to depreciate, because cars over a period of 5 years will depreciate by 60%. So it's a constant depreciation, and that's something that a lot of dealerships, vehicle dealerships struggle with.
Okay.
So if we would look at our model in a B2B perspective, I would say, hey, so you're buying and selling cars. What's your used vehicle inventory, and how many are you moving a month? Okay, how much are you losing every year in depreciation value on these vehicles? Sure, why don't you start renting them out?
Right.
And then in the end of that journey, you can still sell them. They still hold value.
Right.
So there's a perspective in everything.
So then, just on those lines, I just need to ask you, JD. So on the basis of what Omar just explained, do you think acquisitions, a lot of which we have been seeing in the region, do you think that provides sort of like a safety cushion or a safety blanket for the startups coming up, or is that the ultimate goal for startups?
This shows the maturity of the market. This shows that the international investors or international companies have started taking the region seriously, so which encourages the whole ecosystem. I don't think that's an end goal because, frankly, what we are trying to do, I would much rather, because we believe in ourselves as a truly local company trying to solve local problem, right? Mm-hmm. We are on the ground in Saudi, on the ground in the UAE for, catering to the whole GCC region and beyond. And we would like to be one of those companies who goes international rather than someone else coming here. Mm-hmm. But yes, with all the M&A happening, it shows that the regulators are supporting it, the government is supportive, the financial markets are supportive of it, and the investors and the strategic partners are taking the region seriously and understanding the kind of opportunity this region provides.
But on the basis of what you said right now, I had a very similar problem and it's a very similar question, not a problem. When Careem, for example, was acquired by Uber, I was like, Careem is such a local brand when it comes to the name, the way they've branded themselves, and now we've lost our own local child, for example. Same with Souk. Souk, the name itself was just so local, but now it's sort of lost its identity in the whole process. So what do you think that is? Is that a good thing? Because you spoke about culture and you spoke about cultural significance.
Yeah, I have to correct you with a small point here. Now, one of the conditions that Careem put in place in the sale is that they maintain their identity, which I respect so much because when Amazon acquired Souk, that's when Souk just dissolved, and it just became Amazon. But here, Careem I actually see doing even bigger things in the future and maintaining their entity, maintaining their name, and just growing onwards. But in the back end, Uber acquired them. But that doesn't defeat the purpose that they're a UAE-born entity and they will continue to grow as a UAE-born entity and maintain their identity.
All right, that's very interesting. Yes. So again, we have two examples of what's happening here. So finally, unfortunately, we're running short on time, but I would just like to leave you on and ask you about what needs to be done or what more needs to be done to encourage this ecosystem that we have built. I know there are organizations like Area 2071, there's WAMDA, the co-working spaces that are essentially available, but what more can be done? Just your candid opinions on this.
I think, look, this is absolutely on the right track, as you mentioned about co-working spaces, and I know a lot of people who are coming up with some amazing places. For example, one is Unbox in Business Bay, which has just come up. Fantastic space, which encourages anyone who wants to take a step forward in putting their ideas onto, execution mode. I think the benefit of a co-working space is not so much about just the space itself. It's about the ecosystem which that space provides to that individual entrepreneur, whether it's from the legal point of view, whether understanding from the regulatory point of view, whether it's understanding from development point of view, and the mentorships. Who are the people who are there to kind of assist the entrepreneur into their journey. I guess unfortunately we never went through through the co-working space, but I can definitely see a lot of value there because it keeps the organization very lean, your cost structure lean in terms of initial setup phase, and helps a lot of young entrepreneurs in terms of streamlining their thought, filtering their thoughts, and really making the business model sound, which would take them forward.
All right, thanks, Janardhan. So Omar, coming to you, what more needs to be done to encourage the budding entrepreneurs who are probably watching us right now?
To encourage them or encourage which
basically to encourage a startup ecosystem, what needs to be done
to encourage a startup ecosystem? I would say, for entrepreneurs is look at the UAE, find a gap in the market and try and be innovative and fill it with you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just find something that's working outside and then restructure it, remodel it to where it fits the culture here. Now, in terms of what Dubai should do, I would say is create more of these spaces and be more creative with these spaces. I don't know if you guys heard of Dubai Future Accelerators, Dubai Future Foundation. Yeah. It's actually, they have one of the nicest co-working spaces there, and it's accessible to everyone. Yes, it's it's a place where employees go and work, and they're hired by the PMO Prime Minister office. But yet again, I always go there and spend time just because of the environment. So create co-working spaces that are with a nice startup entrepreneur vibe, I would say, and basically start entrepreneurship programs, and to where people can sign up for an entrepreneurship program for 3 months in these co-working spaces.
Right.
Something like a summer camp, so on and so forth, that could encourage people who are going to attend uni or even done with uni and back in Dubai, just to explore that end, I would say.
All right, great. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We definitely have 2 examples, essentially. But thank you for those insights
so
on
for
the
having us.
startup ecosystem of the UAE. And thank you for watching AV Live. We will be back again next Tuesday.